Chapter 351. Hypocritical Mother and Daughter. Lan Yanran, don't be ungrateful. We're just promoting your name. Us media reporters need to eat as well. Your father's illness is big news. As long as it's being reported, someone will know and someone will feel bad for you and pay attention to you. We are making money for you, the leading reporter shouted. Yanran was furious. He blew up, pushing the reporters out and closing the hospital door. Liu called the security department and told them to send someone to clear the people at the door. After the security guard arrived, he pulled the reporters out of the hospital and the entrance became quieter. Yanran, you seem to be popular now. I have something to discuss with you. Xu Yanshan wanted to say it, but she appeared embarrassed. Don't even think about using me to earn money. Yanran immediately refused. He had been scanned by them previously, and this group of people were like vampires, constantly sucking his blood. Raska, what are you saying? Now that you're rich, you can disregard your family? After all, she is also your aunt and also a member of the Lan family. Why can't you arrange for her to be by your side? You've been running to lots of places every day, and you always need a family member to take care of you. Doesn't your aunt have nothing better to you? Zhao Shumi wanted to push Xu Yanshan into his team. It was said that celebrities were paid very well and the people around him shouldn't be poor either, not to mention his aunt. She couldn't be mistreated. Grandma, Dad is still lying here, but instead of saying that you're upset, you're helping Aunt find a job. How sad would Dad be if he were to wake up? Yanran was upset. Zhao Shumi's expression was ugly. She was already here. How could he still be upset? Don't talk so much. Tingyang's condition isn't good. Mom, why are you still in the mood to find a job for her? I saw the news. Aren't you causing trouble for Yanran? I saw the goddamn news and know it was fake. We are all members of the Lan family. How could you hurt us? Liu didn't know what this lady was thinking. She was always thinking of ways to benefit Tingy, and it seemed that she had picked Tingyang up from the streets. You said it yourself, we are family. Why can't we help each other? Tingyang is lying here, so the hospital is yours. How can it not cost money? Your sister-in-law and I are useless, but Tingyang has become like this. I wonder how our life will turn in the future. Doesn't your sister-in-law have her own plans? Mustn't you rely on your family to support them for a little while? Zhao Shumi was worried that once Lan Tingyang fell ill, his income was cut. Her pension wouldn't be enough for a family. Mom, Yanran, don't worry. Aunt has both hands and feet. She'll definitely find a suitable job. How can she nag at her own family? I don't think she would be so shameless, right? Yanran spoke deliberately. Xu Yanshan looked at her face and wished she could slap her. But since she said so, Xu Yanshan couldn't bring up the collaboration with Yanran anymore. Mom, you're mistaken. I just wanted to say that since Tingyang is ill, there are many things that's still happening in the hospital. I want to take turns with you to take care of him, but we don't have any ill intentions. I know that you two have always had a problem with me, but I can't just ignore a matter of life and death. Don't worry and take care of the hospital. I'll handle things here. Yanran sneered and didn't say anything. Xu Yanshan gritted her teeth to control her impulse, but the moment her phone rang, she suddenly smiled. The text was from her daughter, Yaxin. I have successfully moved into the Mo Villa and was hugging Jinrong yesterday. I believe he will be conquered soon. Yaxin's words gave Xu Yanshan hope. She had become proud and arrogant, looking at Yanran arrogantly. Yanran, don't go overboard with some things, or else you'll get your retribution. Yanshan, you can keep an eye on Tingyang. I've been here for the entire night. I'll go back and take a shower before coming back. Xu Yanshan smiled brightly and shawshawed out of the ward in her high heels. Zhao Shumi found it strange and followed behind her, wanting to ask what exactly happened. Why was she so happy? Mom, our good days are coming. Xu Yanshan was extremely agitated. Is it Yaxin? Zhao Shumi hurriedly guessed while Xu Yanshan nodded excitedly. That's great. I knew this child was capable. Zhao Shumi suddenly felt enlightened. After Yaxin succeeded, she wouldn't have to be on eggshells with that family anymore. The two of them had just left the hospital when Mo Junrong came striding towards them. Xu Yanshan was now looking at her future son-in-law. The more she saw, the more she was satisfied. She smiled and walked up to him. Junrong, are you here to see your grandma? Mo Junrong stopped and glanced at the two of them coldly. My grandmother is in good health. She isn't ill. I'm here to see my father-in-law. Junrong, I know how you feel. It's not convenient for you to be in public right now, but we can talk about that later. Ting Young's condition isn't very good now. I don't know what's wrong with Ayn Rand. She took some unknown medicine to feed her biological father. I know she blames her father for sending her to the countryside, and since she was a child, she resents him. She may be smiling a kind person in front of you, but I know she's a scheming girl. Think about it. If she dares to beat me, what can she not do? Sashimi sighed and looked at Mo Junrong. Seeing that he didn't speak, she thought her word had worked and continued speaking. Hurry and persuade her. I said and done the same thing, but she wouldn't listen. I'm just afraid something will happen to Ting Young. Usually I'm strict with him, but he's my only son. I told him she was a jinx, but he treats her like his precious daughter. Now I can see her true colors. Sashimi continued to attack Ayn Rand. I'm in a hurry, sorry. Mo Junrong's voice was cold as he brushed past them. Mom, don't bicker with him. Mo Junrong is such a person. In front of so many people, he can't reveal his innermost feelings and contempt for Ayn Rand. Yaxin has just moved in, which means he likes Yaxin. Don't blame him. Xu Yanshan felt that Mo Junrong was playing hard to get. She seemed to have seen right through his heart. Let's go find Yaxin and discuss our next step. Xu Yanshan smiled and said. Chapter 352, Pig's Belly. In the word, Mo Junrong strode over. How is my father-in-law? Mo Junrong's arrival surprised Ayn Rand. She hadn't told him about her father's illness at all. What are you doing here? Why didn't you tell me that father-in-law was ill? I could have helped. Mo Junrong seemed to sense Ayn Rand's distrust. Dad's condition is stable at the moment. He just needs to drink a few more larger doses of medicine. We're still observing the situation. Ayn Rand spoke calmly. Junrong, don't worry about your father. He will be fine. Liero comforted him. Mom, if you need anything, I can help you transfer him to the best hospital for the best treatment, Mo Junrong said. It's alright, I told you. I would treat Dad. His condition is getting better, and no one knows his dad's illness better than me. Ayn Rand seemed to have never been so determined. Ayn Rand, I know you're good, but this isn't a small matter. Mo Junrong wanted to persuade her again, as such a big surgery wouldn't be an easy task for a medical student like her. He's already drank several bottles of medicine. My father won't be needing surgery. He just needs medicine to dissolve the clots in his brain. Ayn Rand stared straight into his eyes, so Mo Junrong couldn't say anything. Junrong, Ayn Rand and Yan Ren haven't slept or eaten since yesterday. Could you bring her something to eat? I'll take care of things here. Liero was still worried about the children's health, so she spoke insincerely to Mo Junrong. He nodded. Dad will be fine. Let's go up first. I have something to tell you. The three of them went to a small restaurant by this hospital entrance and sat down. Mo Junrong looked around and touched the grease stains on the table, finding it disgusting. He was used to a 5-star hotel with leather seating. He was uncomfortable sitting in the stiff stools in a room full of filth. Can the room here be eaten? Mo Junrong muttered softly. Brother-in-law, don't underestimate the food here. Although the environment isn't as good as your big hotel, the taste is pretty good. Yan Ran smiled thoughtlessly, wanting to relieve some stress for his sister. I really can't leave now, so I can't go to the big hotel with you. Just make do with it. It tastes great here, Ayn Rand persuaded. Tomorrow is the deadline of you-know-who. I will open a path for you in the company, and all the security will be alerted. You have to be careful, Mo Junrong reminded her. Since she was putting on a show, she had to make things realistic, so that he wouldn't find any flaws. Yeah, Ayn Rand replied absent-mindedly. Mo Junrong suddenly grabbed her hand, holding it tightly. Don't worry, Dad will be all right. Yan Ran lowered his hat, afraid that others would recognize him. but he kept glancing at his sister and brother-in-law. Sister, brother-in-law, what are you talking about? Yanran couldn't seem to join in on their conversation. Nothing. Have you resolved your problem? The incident yesterday was still bustling, but there wasn't any news today. Sis Wang has suppressed the news, and it will calm down after a few days. Yaxin is always riding on my coattails. She won't be satisfied until something happens to her. The thought of that one made Yanran furious. Lan Yaxin stayed over yesterday. Mo Jinrong's sudden words caught them both by surprise, and they stared at him with wide eyes. Mo Jinrong, you're the head of the largest world corporation and a public figure. Can't you tell what Yaxin thinks of you? How could you take her in? She spent the night at your house, a man and a woman alone. Did you even think about my sister? I thought you were a gentleman, but I didn't expect you to be like those people. I was mistaken. What did you do yesterday? Yanran was so angry that he almost stood up. Yanran, I'm telling you because I don't want you to misunderstand. Yesterday, she appeared at my house for no reason and said that someone was following her. Mo-san was afraid something would happen to her, so he placed her in the house and she slept the entire night on the sofa in the living room. Don't worry. I said that she would definitely be gone after I go home from work, Mo Jinrong hurriedly explained. Yanran, calm down and sit down. Yanran's expression didn't reveal whether she was angry or not, so she pulled Yanran to sit. She still believed in Mo Jinrong, but not in Yaxin. Jinrong, I believe you, but she won't leave. Leave it to me. Yanran forced a smile. Yaxin doesn't study well and is always thinking about seducing someone else's husband. She's so horrible. She just ruined my reputation, and now she wants to harm my sister. How long is she going to keep this up? Yanran was furious. She was like a malignant tumor in the Lan family, bringing harm to others. It'll escalate to the point where she can't do anything, but I'm not in the mood to deal with her right now. We'll see how I deal with her when Dad recovers. Yanran remembered Yaxin sowing discord in her relationship with Mo Jinrong. That was why she was so cold to Mo Jinrong. Now it seemed that she had done it for her own sake. It was just after the Mo family declined and Mo Jinrong ignored her, she turned away. Brother-in-law, you can't have a change of heart. My sister is the most beautiful person in the world, the best sister. If you dare to do anything to let her down, I will never forgive you. When Yanran threatened him, the food they ordered was already on the table. Mo Jinrong ordered a very light porridge and an egg, but looking at the oily table and the spoons that didn't seem to be cleaned well, he didn't have much of an appetite. Brother-in-law, your food is too light. You should eat some fried dumplings, fried dough sticks, eggs, and a bowl of porridge at a time like this. It's a perfect match. Seeing Yanran eating so happily while Mo Jinrong had no appetite, Yanran picked up a piece of large intestines and smiled. Jinrong, open your mouth. Mo Jinrong didn't know what it was, but when he opened his mouth obediently, and a greasy piece of intestine was instantly stuffed into his mouth. What is this? Mo Jinrong chewed down an extremely pained expression. It was soft and elastic. The fragrance grew stronger in his mouth, and his frown eased. Pig intestines. Yanran smiled and said. Mo Jinrong wished he could rip the piece of meat from his stomach. He felt disgusted and hurriedly drank most of the porridge in his bowl. Is it delicious? You ate too lately. You better eat in the morning to have more strength. Yanran happily ate her dish of large intestines. Chapter 353, Being Followed. Young madam, young master, has never eaten anything like this. He's going to have diarrhea. Mo-san was worried. It's been cleaned and it doesn't hurt to eat it. Butler Mo, have some too. Yanran smiled and said. Mo-san wasn't a clean freak, but after pretending to be Mo Jinrong and eating all kinds of delicacies outside for so many years, he wasn't used to small restaurants like this. Is that what a doctor like you should say? Mo Jinrong's expression was still tortured, as though he had eaten something like trash. It's just a piece of intestine. Why do you look like you eaten trash? Yanran smiled and asked. Mo Jinrong felt even more disgusted and wanted to vomit all the food he had eaten since last night. He couldn't sit still, so he sat outside. Have you done the thing I asked you to? When can I start treatment? Mojano's expression was still painful. Anne thought about it. Her father was still lying in the hospital, and she didn't have the time to care about Shang Taiyan, let alone treat him. She said that her schedule is quite full recently, maybe in a month. Anne said this because she was thinking about her father's condition. Mojano shook his head, denying her suggestion without hesitation. 1 month is too long. 5 days. Ask her to treat me in 5 days. I can pay more. Anne didn't know how to reject. Her father wouldn't be able to recover in 5 days, and if she acted as zero, she would have to run between the hospital and Mojano. Junrong, your illness isn't serious yet. You don't have to be so anxious. No, I have a hunch he'll be here soon. Mojano had recently felt someone, like a presence, by his side, and could sense his existence at all time. Is your illness not cured yet? I think it's better to fight poison with poison. Do you get upset just because you interact with girls? Wouldn't you get better after a few more kisses? Yanan took big bites of his bun and said, Nonsense, don't come up with such rotten ideas. Hurry up and eat, then let's go back and see Dad. Yanan patted his head gently. Mojano was stunned and didn't speak. Afterwards he said, Yanan, if you encounter any difficulties, you can look for me directly. I can deal with it myself. You need to be doing something about Yaxen. Anna mumbled as she ate the last mouthful of large intestines and drank a mouthful of soup. After the two of them parted at the hospital entrance, Mojano went back to the company. Young master, Miss Ki Cha's design sample is out and became extremely popular even before it's been released. Many people are vying for it, Mo-san said. This finished product is going to be sold much more than Ki Cha's previous designs. Remember to do a research review. Young master, the Kin family's market is approaching saturation, and more than half of our cosmetics market has been snatched by them. Our sales season have reached a new low this month. Hurry and think of something. Mo-san was anxious. The Mo family has always been the leader of their respective industries. If one of their industries fell, others would think that the Mo family was weakening. If several families join forces, the Mo family might not be able to last long. I have to be busy with Uncle recently, and I forgot about this matter. Ask Chao Shen to have a meeting with me. Mojano opened the contract on the table. But suddenly there was a polite knocking on the door, and Mo-san was startled when he opened it. Miss Tan, why are you here again? Mo-san had a headache, and he turned to look at Mojano. I'm not here to quarrel. I admit that my previous actions were overboard. I thought about it when I got back and have decided to let go of my obsession with Boss Mo. I'm only here as an agent to discuss the details with Boss Mo. I don't have any other thoughts. Mojano glanced up at Tan Siwen. She was indeed dressed more formally today, unlike the previous times when she was exposed. Mo-san, let her in. Mojano spoke softly again. I don't want anything to happen again, so please act respectfully. I'm the only one of the Tan family left who could make decisions, so I'm just here to discuss the details as the person in charge of the Tan family's project. You can rest assured that I won't pester you anymore. Tan Siwen had a sincere expression. Actually, there aren't many details to discuss. I have assigned the people in charge of the Mo family side to meet you. You can look for them in the future. There's a special team that is in charge of this matter, so don't have to come and find me again. Mojano lowered his head and said, Boss Mo, you really avoid suspicion. There aren't many men like you these days. I heard that your marriage to Miss Lan was decided by your parents. I wonder when your wedding will be so I can attend. Tan Siwen's smile became bashful, and no one could tell what she was up to. There will be one, Miss Tan, but let's talk about the project first. Mojano felt that work shouldn't be mixed with personal feelings. The two of them talked in the office for more than an hour. That's settled for today. It's noon. Would you be interested in having lunch? Tan Siwen smiled and asked. It's all right. I have an appointment with Ayn Rand. Mojano refused. Tan Siwen found it too boring to hang out unnecessarily and nodded before leaving. Young master, when did you make an appointment with young madam for lunch? Mo-san was confused. Just now. Mojano looked down at his watch. It was noon. Had she eaten yet? Mo-san, drive to the hospital. Mojang stood up and picked up his cloak and strode out. Young master, I have been waiting to ask you a question. Is Shang Taiyan going to make more medicine? Mo-san found it strange. Shang Taiyan hadn't done anything recently, and the medicine wasn't being produced. The patients were asking him in the group chat when he would be selling his medicine. How much stock do we have? Mojang asked as he walked. Aside from the last time, there will probably be 2 more truckfuls. Mo-san calculated. Send it all out tonight. Tell them that today is the last time and there won't be any more. Mojang looked reluctant. He had been doing this for Mo Ying all these years, and now that he had let go of her, this matter should end. Yes, young master. Mojang got into a Maybach and drove towards the hospital. On the way, he suddenly felt that someone was watching his car. Mo-san, is the car behind us following? Mojang stared at the rearview mirror vigilantly. Mo-san sped up, and so did the car behind him. He's following us. What should we do? Write down the license plate. Turn the steering wheel into the intersection in front and shake him off before going to the hospital. Mojang's gaze turned sharp. No one would dare to follow him yet, so this might be Mo Shang-Li's car. Young master, sit tight. Mo-san looked at the crossroad in front. Before the traffic light turned red, he suddenly stepped on the accelerator and took advantage of the fact that there weren't a lot of cars in front to drift to the Maybach, swinging into another junction. Just as the traffic light turned red, he drove off. Before the car behind could react, the road in front was full with traffic and the car was blocked. Chapter 354. Ting Young is in shock. Who exactly was that, young master? Mo-san looked at the rearview mirror and saw that the car was gone. He then sighed in relief. I don't know. At the hospital, Anran was still taking care of Ting Young. She took her father's pulse again and found that it had become stronger. Just then, Li Gong came in with a test report. Anran, Deputy Director Li, Director Land's cerebral CT has come out. The blood clot has visibly shrunk, but the blood flow in his brain has also increased. Dr. Land is old, and we don't know if the blood vessels in his brain can take it. Li Gong was worried. It's alright, I can adjust a smaller dose for Dad. Anran looked at the image and sighed in relief. This was undoubtedly a sign of improvement. Suddenly, Ting Young started to convulse all over. His eyes rolled backwards, and the ECG beside him kept ringing. Oh God! Li Gong reacted quickly and pressed Ting Young down. He called a large number of nurses over and spoke anxiously. Someone, hold on to him and inject him with a sedative. Anran didn't have any reaction for a long time. She watched in a daze as her father convulsed on the hospital bed. Dad, what's wrong? Anran shouted anxiously. Anran was confused. She felt his pulse just now and it wasn't bad. How did it become like this? Was there something wrong with her medicine? The nurses pushed him out anxiously, closed the door, and started to rescue. Ting Young, who had been sedated on the hospital bed, gradually calmed down. Li Gong continued to use oxygen and shocked Ting Young's spasming heart with the defibrillator to restart a steady heartbeat. 2 minutes later, the ECG showed a reaction. Li Gong broke into a cold sweat and had his men push Ting Young to do a CT scan. Leah was frightened. She sat on the ground in a daze. She only heaved a sigh of relief when she saw Ting Young was all right. Dr. Li, what exactly happened? Leah asked. The situation isn't clear yet, but judging from the CT scan just now, Anran's medicine was indeed effective. But there might have been a side effect. If we take him for a full body checkup now, we should be able to find the cause. Li Gong wiped the sweat off his forehead. Mom, don't worry, Dad will be alright, Anran comforted her. Leo nodded. After Yaxin left Mojang's house, she went to school. She didn't apply for leave for Anran, and when Li Yu asked, she said she simply didn't know. The gossip in school hadn't stopped, so Yaxin could only hide in the classroom and study hard. Even so, there were so many people gossiping about her. Yaxin pretended not to hear them, but every word pierced through her heart like a knife. Lan Yaxin, I heard that you have a boyfriend and even have an abortion. Lin Chang ran over teasingly. Don't talk nonsense. I don't do anything of those things. It's all fake. You were all deceived by Anne. She's the one who started the rumors. I believe she's trying to slander me. Jackson was no longer well-behaved as before. She was furious. In the past, she was the arrogant school beauty and everyone treated her with respect. Now she was the joke of the school. It's all because of Anne. Slander? You must have done a lot of bad things in the past, huh? Lin Cheng still hated her for using him. Lin Cheng, do you think you're a good person? Don't slander me here. Jackson slammed the table angrily, and the surrounding people immediately looked at her strangely. Lion Jackson, come with me to the principal's office. The principal suddenly appeared from behind and looked at her angrily. Various indecent rumors about Lion Jackson had spread throughout the school, and he had no choice but to listen. This was severely affecting the school's reputation. As the principal, he had to investigate this matter. The rule in the school: you can't offend the principal, no matter who else you offended. In the eyes of the students, the principal of the wrong city university wasn't someone to be trifled with. If it wasn't serious, the parents would just be called. If it is serious, the students could be expelled. Jackson had to go with him, so she followed the principal into the office under everyone's gaze. The principal sat down unhappily. What exactly happened? Lion Jackson, if you have any problems, you can speak to your teacher and head of the year. Now that such rumors are flying around the school, it will severely affect the school's reputation. As the principal, how am I going to face others? Jackson lowered her head. She wouldn't be able to clear her name. Principals, those rumors are fake news. I don't know how they spread, but someone must be jealous of me. I really didn't do anything that has been said. Jackson cried aggrievedly. There is no smoke without fire. If you didn't do it, why would someone spread the rumors? This school is a place for you to study, not a place for you to do such dirty things. Tell me the truth. Did you do it? Otherwise, I'll inform your parents and let them take you home to reflect. The principal looked at her and thought of her parents. Wasn't her father in jail? Now there should only be her mother and grandmother left in the family. It seemed that the apple didn't fall far from the tree. He really didn't expect the top student, who always had good morals, would do such a thing. Principal, I have been wronged. I really didn't do those things. Someone is slandering me. Jackson wiped her tears aggrievedly. Her snot and tears frustrated the principal. Since you say that someone slandered you, do you have anyone you suspect? This is a school, not a place for scheming and plotting. If you tell me, I will definitely investigate. If you didn't do it, I will definitely clear your name. The principal hated it when others cried. He was frustrated when he couldn't say anything now. I think Anne is behind this. I don't know how I offended her, but she's so cruel to tarnish my name. Principal, you must help me. Jackson choked. The principal frowned, glancing at Jackson, and asked curiously, Your sister, Lan Anne? That girl looks well-behaved and her grades are good. How could she do such a shameful thing? The principal would never believe that Anne could do such a thing. She seemed more reliable than Jackson, and was also the top of students in the school, which helped his school's students' advancement rate. Next year, he would have to make Anne his school ambassador. I don't know either. Sis came from the countryside and has always been in the countryside for so many years. Perhaps Anne doesn't have feelings, and because second uncle and aunt usually treat me better, Sis might be jealous. But I didn't expect her to do such a thing. I know you don't believe me. I insist that I was the one who did it, but it's because I had no choice but to take the blame for Sis. Jackson felt wronged and started to cry again. Chapter 355, Rare Medicine. Alright, Jackson, stop crying. Lion Anran didn't come to class today. Do you know the reason? Li Yu had already reported Anran's absence to the principal. After all, no one picked up the phone when she called her parents, so she was afraid that something had happened to the child. Jackson shook her head. Sis might be used to the countryside. In the past, she said that she wouldn't attend school if she didn't want to. Does she not understand principles? No, she knew how to take time off when she's done so why didn't she take it this time? Go home after school and let me know this by the afternoon. The principal let Jackson go back first. Jackson walked out of the principal's office and wiped her tears. Her smile was horrifying. Anran, I'll make you pay tenfold for what you've done to me. After school, Yaxon returned home and found her things packed. Yaxon, didn't you say you stayed at Mojin Rong's last night? I'll pack your things and send you to Mojin Rong's place to stay. Shu Yanshan smiled and said, Mom, it hasn't even begun. Yaxon was embarrassed. We can't rush this, but moving in is a good sign. Your grandma and I have discussed this. Mojin Rong may look old, but he likes you deep down. He's just embarrassed to say it, so we need to increase the offensive. Have you seen what we bought? Shu Yanshan took out a set of pink, sexy pajamas and showed it to Yaxon. Yaxon's face flushed. She didn't dare to look at the pink lacy pajamas. It exposed all the areas she needed to. But she was a student, so how could she wear it? Mom, what did you buy? How am I going to wear this? My silly girl. You can't fool a man if you can't bear the part of being prudish. Which man doesn't cheat? Wouldn't Mojin Rong be hooked if your clothes are a little revealing? Shu Yanshan thought that Mojin Rong would like this type of clothing, and had specifically spent a large sum of money when she passed by the store. Good granddaughter, your mom is right. You can't deceive a wolf if you can't bear the part of being prudish. You're a lady now. Aren't you going to be 18 in 2 days? Mojin Rong is your man. What's there to be shy about? Bring this set of pajamas over and let him see it in 2 days. I can guarantee that he'll take the bait. Sashimi smiled and said, Grandma, I don't dare. Mojin Rong isn't that kind of person. I'm a little scared. Yaxon was really a little scared. She guessed that Mojin Rong wouldn't like this sort of thing. You child, how much do you know about men? Now, how much do I know? Would you be listening to Mom to harm you? She answered and stuffed the pajamas into her hand unhappily. Yaxon, listen to your mother. If she has 20 years younger, she wouldn't let you take the risk. Since you're already in the house, just stay there and gather the firewood. Wouldn't it prevent any problems when the fire started? Sashimi persuaded her. Yaxon had no choice but to accept the pajamas and stuff it in her suitcase. Grandma, second uncle is sick and Dad isn't around. What are you going to do about your birthday? Yaxon suddenly remembered that Sashimi's birthday was tomorrow. It wouldn't be possible to hold such a big celebration like this before, but it couldn't be avoided. Ting-Young is sick. How can I be in a mood to hold a birthday party? Sashimi was upset at the thought of this unlucky incident. Mom, we have to hold a birthday party. We would be creating an opportunity for Mojin Rong and Yaxon. Although it can't be as grand as last year's, we can still book a private room. We can use your birthday as an excuse to help cheer up Ting-Young. He might even get better. Shu Yanshan smiled and said. Sashimi thought about it and agreed. She couldn't neglect her birthday because of Ting-Young's illness. She still had to hold one, but in the blink of an eye she frowned again. You're right, but where will we get the money from? A private room costs at least 800 yuan. In addition to the service fees, drinks, and dishes, this alone costs at least 10,000 yuan. Where will the money come from? Mom, have you forgotten about Ting-Young? We saved his life by counteracting his bad luck with your birthday party, so naturally we should get him to fork over the money. Who are we doing this for? It's all for his sake of his illness. You're his mom, yet you're making this birthday celebration an act of counteracting bad luck. Shouldn't Li Euro fork out some money for this? Shu Yanshan took it all for granted. You're right, I'm doing this to save my son. I don't have any other intentions. They should be able to fork up to tens of thousands. Sashimi smiled happily again. Good girl, hurry up and go. We're counting on you. Shu Yanshan sent the items into a taxi and told the driver to let them at the Mo Villa. Yaxon followed. In the hospital, Anren was busy with Ting-Young and didn't know that her phone was dead. When she picked up her phone and charged it, she saw so many calls from her teacher and Patty. She first called Li Yu to tell her that her father was seriously ill and that she couldn't go to school. And then she called Fatty. Boss, Shang Taiyan will be sending out more goods tonight than before. I believe that this will be his last stock. Shall we play? Fatty had been staring at Mojin Rong and noticed that his men were secretly moving things into the black market. I'm not free right now. Just keep an eye on him. There's no need to fight. I'll ask him myself. Anran couldn't find the time to care about other people's business. She stared at Ting Young with sympathy. The report came out 2 minutes later, and Li Gong stared at her solemnly. "How is it, Dr. Li?" Li Yiro asked anxiously. "Although Anran's medicine has cleared his blood vessels, we have discovered through a full-body checkup that the blood clot in Ting Young's brain has started to show signs of melting. But unfortunately, another blood clot has formed. This is the main reason for his convulsions today. Anran, I think you should consider using another herb. This herb of yours is indeed avoiding the problem of the operation, but it can't solve the root problem. I know of an herb that can get the root of the problem, but it's extremely difficult to find the herb." Li Gong looked at the report and thought about the herb. There weren't one even in the season, and it was extremely rare. Now that even the country prohibited it, they didn't even get it. "Uncle Li, I will definitely be able to get it as long as you say so." Anran made up her mind. She would get it regardless of the difficulty or the price, just as long as she could save her father. A few years ago, an herb called the Divine Essence appeared on the Blind Mountain. If its seed is used and turned into an herb juice that is added to the medicine, it'll have a quick effect, which can clear the head and eyes, as well as purifying the blood. I only heard about it from other doctors, but I don't know if there have been any more of them in the past few years. These herbs grow in the deep mountains and might not be available now. Just as Li finished speaking, Anran turned and left. Chapter 356, Biological. Her master definitely had such medicine. Over the years, her master loved collecting strange Chinese herbs, and there are many rare species growing in his backyard. Her master would definitely have some. Anran ran into Zhao Shumi, who was at the hospital. "Stupid child, are you blind?" Zhao Shumi was knocked down onto the floor. Before she could get up, she cursed. She raised her head, and when she saw Anran's back, she started to scold her even more brazenly. "You brat, your father is inside and you want to kill me? You ran away after hitting someone? I'll deal with you when you come back." Shi Yanchen helped Zhao Shumi up. "Ignore her. Money is more important now." Zhao Shumi arrived at the ICU angrily, but unlike her previous posture, she spoke meekly. "I have something to discuss with you." Li Yiro's mind was full of Ting Young, and she nodded absent-mindedly. "Mom, Ting Young almost died just now. What do you think I would do if something happened to him?" Li Yiro had suffered too much. She didn't want to cry in front of her children, but the scene was just too much for her to bear. Zhao Shumi was thunderstruck when she heard this, her eyes widening. "What did you say? I knew that brat didn't have good intentions. But you didn't listen and insisted on causing my son's death. Are you satisfied?" Zhao Shumi nudged Li Yiro. Yanran carried bread and water over. When he saw that someone was bullying his mother, he couldn't take it, but threw the water and bread aside and pushed Zhao Shumi away. "How could you bully Mom when I'm not around?" "You rascal! Your father was almost killed by your good sister. I'll beat her to wake her up. Otherwise, she won't be satisfied until Ting Young has died." I knew that she was up to no good. She must hate us for sending her to the countryside. Her usually well-behaved appearances is just an act. Zhao Shumi finally found an opportunity to counterattack. "Nonsense, this is really saving Dad. Her medicine has taken effect on Dad, but the blood clot in Dad's brain has formed a new one elsewhere. How could you accuse her like this? Sis is going to find medicine for Dad now." Yanran was very clear-headed. He knew that the older two women in front of them didn't have any good intentions. Find medicine? She must be looking for poison to kill her father. "That brat can't stay in the Land family anymore. I'll chase her out after my birthday celebration is over." "Mom, what are you saying? Ting Young is in such a state and you're still thinking about holding a birthday party?" Li Yiro looked at old Mrs. Land in disbelief. After all, the person lying inside was her own son. As a mother, how could she think of celebrating her birthday when her son is in a life-and-death situation? "Yiro, I was just about to tell you about it. Ting Young is lying in there and we don't know when he'll get better. Mom was desperate. She sought help from the Taoist priest from the town god's temple to give a fortune-telling for Ting Young. You might not believe it, but the person is very accurate. He knew that someone in the house is ill and that someone's birthday was coming. That person said that to let old Mrs. Land celebrate her birthday as a blessing so that Ting Young would get better. Xu Yanchen spoke beautifully, claiming that everything was for the sake of Ting Young. What kind of superstition is that? Ting Young is like this now. Mom, you don't want to treat his illness, but instead you want to celebrate your birthday? A blessing? I think you just want to celebrate your own birthday. Lyra was furious. Usually she would behave severely in front of old Mrs. Land, but she was willing because old Mrs. Land hadn't crossed her bottom line yet, so that she didn't say anything. It was just too much for her to think about her birthday celebration when it is a matter of life and death situation like today. The older ones don't respect me, and the younger ones don't respect me either. Look at that brat. She must have learned this from you. I'm your mom. How can you speak to me like this? Aren't I doing this for Ting Young's sake? They said that Ting Young's illness would be cured after my birthday celebration, unless you don't want him to get better. Sashimi got angrier as she spoke. She was clearly focusing on treating Ting Young, so why was she still being accused like this? What kind of feudal superstition is this? My dad is lying inside. Ask the Taoist priest to come over and perform the ritual for him. I will believe him if my dad recovers after that. Yanran protected his mother. Now that his sister wasn't around, his mother could only rely on him. Sashimi was stunned. The Taoist priest she mentioned was just an excuse for having a banquet. How could there be a real Taoist priest? How could you be so stubborn? You were once in university, don't you know metaphysics? I don't want to waste my breath on you. Yanran, you are a big star now, and I heard that celebrities make a lot of money. You're famous now, and you must be making a lot of money. Since that's the case, don't let your mom fork over the money. Just use your own tens of thousands to hold your grandmother's birthday celebration, to give a blessing to your dad. This year won't be as ostentatious as last year's. We'll book a private room and invite a few people. Xu Yanchen stretched out her hand boldly and demanded money. Yanran trembled with anger. How could there be such a relative? Mom, Ting Young is lying here sick. Can you hold a birthday party in peace? Is he really your biological son? Even if we were rich, we wouldn't hold a birthday party for the likes of you. Lyra was so angry that she couldn't breathe. Lyra, you don't know what's good for you. Your daughter is going to kill Ting Young, and we're trying to save him. It's the only thing if you aren't grateful. But Mom has already lowered her status to prepare her birthday celebration as a blessing. What excuse do you have to accuse her? She's doing this for your son. As his wife, don't you understand? Xu Yanchen's words were harsh. Today, she finally had a legitimate reason to scold them. Hurry and get out of the hospital. I don't want to see you. Lyra shouted and suddenly blacked out. Mom! Yanran hugged his mother anxiously and looked at the doctors and nurses, and then turned to Xu Yanchen and Zhao Shumi. What are you looking at? Get out of here. My mom fainted because of you two. What else do you want? Yanran was furious and wanted to chase them away. Just then, Mojinrao suddenly appeared in the hospital. Brother-in-law, Mom fainted. When Yanran saw Mojinrao walk over, he seemed to have grabbed onto a life-saving straw. What are you doing? Mojinrao stared at Xu Yanchen sharply. Jinrong, you can be the judge. We are upset that Ting Young is like this. We just want some money to hold a birthday party for Mom so that we can give the blessings to Ting Young. We came with the hope that he can get better, but now we're being treated with malicious intent for our kindness. They don't appreciate it at all. It's all right with me, but Mom is Ting Young's biological mother. Tingy isn't by her side, and she only has one biological son left. Would she harm him? Xu Yanchen took the chance to pull Mojinrong's hand as she spoke aggrievedly. Chapter 357, Making Medicine. Blessing in this era and age? Do such feudal superstitions exist? Mojinrong retracted his hand angrily and glanced at Ting Young. What feudal superstitions? I got someone qualified to calculate this. Sashimi was anxious. She was clearly being nice. How was it feudalistic? That's enough, Mom. Jinrong, we're doing this for Ting Young's sake. Tell them and persuade them. Xu Yanchen smiled, looking at Mojinrong like he was your prey. Mojinrong glanced back at Mosan and said, Mosan, it's too noisy here. Chase them out. Mosan wanted to pull them away as he heard the order. Mojinrong, you... Xu Yanshan hurriedly pulled Zhao Shumi. Mom, don't be angry. He's our future son-in-law, Xu Yanshan muttered softly. Zhao Shumi held her anger in silence. We're leaving. Remember to come for the birthday party. Xu Yanshan dragged Zhao Shumi away noisily. Mo Junrong asked curiously when he saw no sign of Ayn Rand. Where's Ayn Rand? Sis heard that there's a medicine that can cure Dad's illness. She went to look for it, but I'm not sure if she can find it. Ayn Rand was a little worried. The mountain that the doctor had told Ayn Rand was Blind Mountain. It was called Blind Mountain because of the frequent mist surrounding it. Blind Mountain had a very low visibility, and he didn't know if Ayn Rand would be able to return safely. Brother-in-law, help me look after Dad first. I'll see how Mom is doing. Ayn Rand felt uncomfortable when he saw his parents fall ill. He had split himself into two, and since his father's condition was stable, he had to visit his mother. Mo Junrong nodded. Young master, Miss Lan is taking risks again. Mo-san was worried. Mo Junrong called Ayn Rand, but she didn't pick up. He was also a little worried. On the mountain, this time, Ayn Rand didn't bring Xu Shan's favorite roast geese and liquor. She didn't care about these things and directly went up the mountain. When she arrived at the top of the mountain, sweating profusely, Xu Shan happened to be carrying a basket. Goodness, what happened to you? Xu Shan hurriedly put down his things and looked at Ayn Rand. Master, do you have any divine incense? Ayn Rand asked breathlessly. Xu Shan frowned and asked, Why do you want that? Divine incense is very effective, but it's also very poisonous. You might end up dying if you aren't careful. I will control its strength. Master, tell me, where is it? Ayn Rand looked anxious. Xu Shan walked into the backyard and looked at the courtyard full of precious herbs. He searched carefully and found. There are many people in the village that have come to ask for medicine. There is still one last stalk of divine incense left. Xu Shan walked to the corner and pointed at a piece of bluegrass. Fortunately, I only want its seed. Ayn Rand was extremely excited. Her father could be saved. Xu Shan plucked all the seeds and handed them to Ayn Rand. Master, how many seeds should I use? There's a clot in my father's brain, and I'm afraid the quantity that I use won't be accurate. Master, please help me. Ayn Rand seemed a little agitated. Ayn Rand, calm down first. Did you bring the medicine? Xu Shan stabilized Ayn Rand and asked her the question. Ayn Rand hurriedly took out the tube of medicine and handed it to Xu Shan. Time was tight. I don't have time to make a full medicine, only the herb juice. My dad got better after drinking it, but he suddenly went into shock and was just about being saved. Xu Shan took the herb juice into the house and placed the herb into the medicine bottle to process and extract it. Ayn Rand watched from the side. She could only wait. Suddenly there seemed to be someone on the mountain, and a woman's voice came from the door. Old man, I'm here. Sun Hai climbed up, panting. Every time she came, she would have to climb for an hour because she didn't have money to take the cable car, so she rarely came over. Xu Shan was focused on extracting medicine. Grass was harder to use than any other herb, especially the divine incense. The diameter of the herb was less than 3 millimeters, and the ingredients inside were very little. Fortunately, there were about 100 seeds in the divine incense, which was enough for Xu Shan to extract them. Ayn Rand, what are you doing here? You didn't go to school or apply for leave. I was worried. Sun Hai was surprised. My dad is sick. I have to take care of him. Ayn Rand forced a smile. Lan Yaxin is so evil. What are you doing? Sun Hai stared curiously at the bottles and jars that Xu Shan hadn't touched in a long time. There were different bubbles of different colors inside. Ever since she came here, she had never seen Xu Shan make anything. It was really strange today. This should have been seen in chemistry class. She didn't expect Xu Shan to know it as well. We're extracting medicine. Sun Hai, take a look. This is the extraction method for the divine incense. You'll get to see it today. Xu Shan spoke as he worked seriously. Divine incense? Old man, you haven't taught me this before. You can't be biased. Sun Hai was curious and exclaimed. In the past few days, she had been picking herbs at the foot of Mount Shu and knew a lot of things, but she didn't know about divine incense. Xu Shan didn't speak, but picked up a cup and took a small drop of yellow liquid in the distillery at the side and poured it into the herbal juice. And then if you have time, it would be better to change it to Chinese medicine soup. Although the juice is the fastest method, but every medicine is toxic. This juice is more than 30% toxic. I've extracted the instance. You can use it, but you have to try in case. Shushan finished speaking. Ayn Rand took a sip. You child, how could you drink this medicine? I just said that the medicine was 30% toxicity. What if something happens to you? Shushan lectured. It's alright, master. If I drink it, I will be alright. And so, Dad will definitely be alright as well. Don't worry, my health is good. I can't give him the medicine that is problematic. Ayn Rand wiped her mouth and smiled. Ayn Rand, you're so silly. Sun Hai was a little sympathetic. Ayn Rand smiled. She was quite silly. In her past life, she was instigated by bad people and caused the death of her parents. If anything happened to her this time, she would treat it as returning to her life, to her parents, and the hatred in her past life would be resolved. After 2 minutes, Ayn Rand didn't have any reactions. She thought that everything should be alright and hurriedly kept the reagents in her bag before turning to leave. Ayn Rand, wait a moment. How long has it been? What if something happens? Shushan hurriedly pulled her back. It took time for medicine to react, and it wouldn't work in just a few minutes. Ayn Rand, wait a little while longer. We can't take the risk, Sun Hai persuaded. Ayn Rand thought about it and decided not to act recklessly. She sat down quietly. Ayn Rand, I remember you telling me that you resented your parents for sending you to the countryside and ignoring you. I'm really glad to see you worrying about your parents now. Shushan thought about how Ayn Rand wasn't like this in the past. She was arrogant and didn't like to interact with others. She didn't have many friends when she was a child and was always icy cold to others. She wasn't like that anymore. Chapter 358, Family Treasure. Ayn Rand forced a smile. I didn't understand my parents in the past, but recently, I know that they treated me sincerely. Back then, they didn't have a choice either. It was my fault in the past, but now, I can't blame them. Shushan nodded. The three of them waited in the room for more than 10 minutes. After confirming that everything was alright, Ayn Rand left the mountain with the medicine. The moment she got into the car, she received a call from Mo Junrong. Ayn Rand, where are you? Mo Junrong sounded anxious. Did something happen to my father? Ayn Rand hurriedly asked. Your mom fainted just now. Did you get your medicine? Mo Junrong asked. He knew that it wasn't easy to get hold of time. It was tight. He wondered if Ayn Rand had found it. Fainted? I'll be right back. Tell Uncle Lee that the medicine has been found and there won't be any problem since I tested it on myself. Ayn Rand hung up, hoping the driver would drive faster. In the hospital, Mo Junrong had just hung up when his phone rang. Nephew, don't forget about tomorrow. Be good and prepare well. There will be a surprise tomorrow. The voice on the other end was very calm, as though he had everything planned out. Before Mo Junrong could say anything, he hung up. Young master, should we send someone to old Mrs. Mo's house to keep an eye on her tomorrow? Considering the old lady's weak health, Mo-san decided to be careful. Just get someone to keep an eye on the house. Just then, Ayn Rand and Li Gong came over for a check on the ward. Brother-in-law, Mom is fine. She'll be okay after some rest. Is there news from my sister? Ayn Rand said she'll be back soon. She has the medicine, Mo Junrong said. Li Gong found it strange. The herb was in the woods and would take more than an hour to get there, let alone pick it up. How did she get it so quickly? That's great, we can save Dad. Uncle Lee, hurry and see Dad, Ayn Rand said excitedly. Li Gong walked in to look at Ting Young's pupils and body temperature, which were both normal. Don't worry, your dad is fine for the time being. Director Lan is just too tired. Usually we told him to have a good rest, but he just wouldn't listen. Li Gong shook his head helplessly. Suddenly, heavy and hurried footsteps appeared in the corridor. Uncle Lee, hurry and give this medicine to Dad. I've tested it on myself and didn't cause any harm, Ayn Rand said breathlessly. You child, how can you drink the medicine so easily? Your father is very fortunate to have a daughter like you. Li Gong spoke enviously and fed Lan Tingyang the herbal juice. Ayn Rand, why did Mom faint? Ayn Rand asked curiously. She was fine before she left. It's all because of Grandma and Shu Yanshan. They insisted on celebrating Grandma's birthday, saying that they were giving blessings for Dad. Is Dad really her biological son? Yanran was puzzled as he asked. It's them again. Yanran clenched her fists. She had once sworn not to let her parents be hurt by them again, but she didn't do anything about it now. Her father wasn't the only one whose life was in danger. Even her mother had fainted from anger. She couldn't let them off. She went to see her mother and heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that her mother was still asleep. Yanran, help me reserve a birthday gift for Grandma. Tell them to send it to her personally on the day itself. Yanran gritted her teeth in hatred. She wouldn't give such a gift to her if she wanted her to lead a happy life. She whispered to Yanran and the two of them discussed for a while. Yanran looked at his sister excitedly, his eyes full of envy. Sis, you're so amazing. You did something I've always wanted to do but dared not to. Yanran ran out excitedly. Mojinon found it strange. Wasn't she against it? So why was she giving gifts? What rotten idea did you come up with again? Mojinon smiled as he asked. Looking at Yanran's appearance, she didn't have any good ideas. When the time comes, let's attend Grandma's birthday party. We don't want them to think we're ignorant. Yanran smiled and said, All right, why are you here? Yanran had a strange look in her eyes. Did he miss her so much after meeting her this morning? I thought that you hadn't eaten yet, so I came over to have lunch with you. Mojinon leaned over and hugged Yanran. His voice was so gentle that it gave Yanran goosebumps. I can't leave my mother and dad like this. Can you accept ordered food? Yanran looked at her mother on the bed and asked him. Mojinon never ate takeout, but for the sake of Yanran, he restrained himself and nodded. Shu Yanshan and Zhao Shimi were furious when they reached home. Mojinon is outrageous. I am Yanran's grandmother. How dare he treat me like this? He has no manners. Zhao Shimi cursed. Mom, he is the young master. Don't stoop down to his level. He is about to become Yaxin's husband. When the time comes, you can teach him a lesson, but not now. Shu Yanshan stopped her. He was her money tree now, and she treated him like an ancestor. I'm so angry. That Li Yero is so outrageous. She fainted after just a few sentences. She must be faking it. If we give the blessings, Ting Young might even get better. Damn it. Zhao Shimi was unwilling. She had never missed having a birthday party in the past. How could she not hold one when she was this old? Wouldn't she be a joke? Mom, if she isn't willing to pay, what are we going to do about the birthday party? Why don't we just celebrate it at home? Shu Yanshan didn't have a choice. Of course not. We held my birthday parties in grand settings, and in the past few years I have already spoken to my friend. When the time comes, they will definitely come. Wouldn't it be embarrassing if I don't hold it properly? Zhao Shimi was a prideful woman and had informed her friends a month ago. It would be embarrassing if she had to inform them that the birthday party was cancelled. But where will we get the money from? Isn't my money? Zhao Shimi didn't finish her sentence. Her money had already been taken away by Ting's family, and now she was relying on Ting Young's retirement money to live. But now 2,000 yuan a month wasn't enough for a banquet. Mom, Tingy and I are burdening you, but this is your birthday. You can decide for yourself. I heard that you have a jade bracelet passed down from your ancestors that is priceless. If you sell it, you'll definitely have enough to afford the birthday party. I think there will be money left over too. Shu Yanshan had been staring at the jade bracelet for a long time. When Mr. Lan was still around, she had seen her wear it every day. Now that he wasn't around, old Mrs. Lan didn't wear it anymore, and had kept it. She hadn't seen it in years. Now that life was so difficult, what was the point of keeping it? Zhao Shimi was unwilling. It was her husband's family heirloom, which was a token of love. Even if he wasn't around, she would keep it. How could she exchange it for money? No, that was passed on from the old man's ancestors. It is the Lan family's treasure. How can I exchange it for money? Mom, Dad isn't around anymore. It's useless since we can't use it to eat or drink. I don't have enough money for food now, and Ting Young's in such a state. It's up to you whether you want to hold your birthday party or not. Shu Yanshan didn't seem to care anymore. Chapter 359, Backfire. Zhao Shimi hesitated again. This bracelet was priceless. If she sold it and couldn't get it back in the future, wouldn't she be finished? But she had no choice but to hold a birthday party, which made things difficult for her. Shu Yanshan seemed to have thought of Zhao Shumi's worry and smiled. Mom, you can pawn the bracelet at the pawn shop. In the future, you can just buy it back when you're rich. Don't worry, how could Tingyang not care for you when he recovers, right? Anyway, the bracelet is going to be given to Yaxin. I know that. Mom, don't worry, we'll definitely get it back. Have you forgotten that Yaxin is about to marry into a rich family? Shu Yanshan bewitched her. This bracelet was a treasure of the Lan family and had been passed down for several generations. Old Mrs. Lan couldn't possibly have passed it down to Anran or Yanran, so Yaxin would definitely be the one to inherit it. It was just that the situation was urgent and Yaxin had already halfway succeeded. Zhao Shumi suddenly remembered. That's right, if Yaxin succeeded, she could buy back the bracelet, so she could sell this bracelet now. Yanshan, keep it well and redeem it when the time comes. This bracelet hasn't been separated from me. I've been wearing it ever since your father gave it to me. Zhao Shumi carefully took out the emerald green jade from under her pillow. It was stained with her blood, sweat, and tears, and she reluctantly handed it to Shu Yanshan. Don't worry, Mom. I will definitely pick a good venue for you to make it lively. Shu Yanshan promised and was overjoyed by the jade bracelet. Time flew by and night fell. Yaxin returned to the Mo family villa after school and shamelessly moved in. She found an empty room that was pink and filled with girls' things. Yaxin was curious as to why it was filled with cute things when Anran didn't stay in this room. A bold idea appeared in Yaxin's mind. Was Mo Jinrong hiding a mistress? She couldn't bear the sight of another woman in his house, so she simply put everything away and arranged her own things. She held the sexy nightgown and smiled shyly. It was her first time wearing this, and she wondered if Mo Jinrong would like it. Yaxin ran into the bathroom shyly, showered, and changed into her pajamas. She waited gratefully for Mo Jinrong to return. When Mo Jinrong and Mo San returned to the house, they noticed something strange. Someone is here? Mo Jinrong was wary. See the lights on Mo Yang's room above. Was she back? He wanted to check, but Mo San hurriedly stopped him. Young master, wake up. Missy is long gone, Mo San reminded him. Mo Jinrong suddenly reawakened. Mo Ying had passed away a long time ago, so someone else was here. There's someone here, Mo Jinrong reminded him. Young master, I'll take a look first. Mo San crept upstairs. He pushed the door open gently and strode in when he found it open. Yaxin was scared and decided to turn off the lights. When she heard someone enter, she thought it was Mo Jinrong and was scared stiff. Mo San fumbled around slowly, already panicking. The sudden darkness made him even more nervous. Suddenly, he seemed to have touched something. It was smooth and soft with a hint of fragrance. Curiosity drove him to keep stroking. Yaxin thought it was Mo Jinrong's hand, so she grabbed it and gently placed it on her face. She was so scared that she didn't dare to breathe. Mo San could sense a woman and was interested. Suddenly, Mo San's lips felt like they were smeared with something cold and tasteless. He licked it, and in 2 seconds he felt his body heat up. As though he couldn't control it, he slumped on the bed. Yaxin thought she succeeded. She fed Mo Jinrong the yellow liquid from the morning. Now that he was down, she could do whatever she wanted. Mo Jinrong saw that Mo San hadn't come down in such a long time. The lights were switched off, and there wasn't any sounds. He felt that something wasn't right and decided to go up himself. As he turned on the lights, he panicked at the sight. Mo San and Yaxin laid on the same bed. Most of the clothes on Mo San's upper body had been taken off. What are you doing? Mo Jinrong's sudden voice startled Yaxin. Yaxin looked at Mo Jinrong and then at Mo San, who was lying next to her, and couldn't help but cry out. Oh God, it's you? Mo San's body grew hotter and hotter, beyond control. He just wanted a cooling sensation. Yaxin was frightened and hurriedly got off the bed, her face flushed with embarrassing. Mo Jinrong could tell at a glance that he was drugged and hurriedly dragged him to the bathtub to cool down. What happened? Mo Jinrong hurriedly asked. Yaxin felt disgusted. Wasn't Mo Jinrong the one who came in? How could it be him? I don't know. I wanted to sleep, but he suddenly came in and pressed me down. Are you going to help me? Yaksen started to cry. Mojang was focused on cooling Mosan down, but even so, the heat wasn't relieved, and Mosan was still hot. Go to the fridge and get some ice, Mojang called out. Yaksen was frightened and she could only obey, but inside she was cursing. She was deliberately stalling to make the ugly man suffer longer. Why are you so slow? Hurry and put it in the bathtub, Mojang called out. He knew that Yaksen must have done something. If he had gone in just now, he would have been finished. Yaksen placed all the ice cubes on the bathtub. Mosan kept drinking water and his face was flushed. A specific body part was swollen, and Yaksen couldn't bear to look at him. Get out, Mojang scolded. He was busy dealing with Mosan and didn't have the time to deal with her. Brother-in-law, get out! Mojang was furious. Yaksen had no choice but to walk out slowly. The room slowly fell silent, and Mojang watched Mosan calm down, before turning off the tap and leaving. Yaksen finally understood the power of that thing. If she used it on Mojang, she would probably be the young lady of the Mo family by now. It was all his fault. Why did this happen? Mojang questioned, wiping the splashed water off his body with a towel. Brother-in-law, let me help you. Yaksen seized the opportunity to get the towel, but Mojang pushed her away. The scent of her perfume was nauseating. Why are you dressed like this at my own house? I told you I wanted you to leave by the time I returned. Don't you understand? Mojang was displeased. Brother-in-law, I quarreled with my family and had nowhere to go. Yaksen lowered her head like a lost girl. I don't care where you go. Just pack your things and get lost. Who allowed you to stay in this room? Mojang looked at the arrangements in the room. Mo Ying's things from the past were all gone, but Yaksen's things had replaced them. He picked up the photo frame and smashed it. Brother-in-law, Yaksen was frightened. She had never seen such a terrible-tempered person. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I'll go to another room. I can sleep on the sofa, but please don't make me leave. I really don't have anywhere to go. Yaksen started to cry. Chapter 360, Chased Out. Get out, Mojang repeated impatiently. Yaksen cried and begged for mercy. She didn't want to leave, after all. Her plan had just begun. She continued to cry pitifully. Brother-in-law, I'm also a victim. Butler Mo took the initiative and I was forced. Yaksen sensibly took everything out. She would rather sleep in the living room than leave. Mojang had no choice but to throw her things out and stand at the door. Anran never admitted to having a sister like you. Take your things and get out. Mojang spoke coldly and slammed the door shut. Yaksen's bold ambitions had been released. If others knew that she was being chased out, her mother would scold her to death. But she couldn't enter now. She couldn't force Mojang too much, so she could only act pitiful and win his sympathy. She knelt down and slowly packed her things and sat by the door. When she felt cold in the middle of the night, she took a blanket from the box and wrapped it around her body. She was shivering from the cold and hid in a corner by the door. Inside, Mojang watched Mosan shiver in the bathtub. He looked at the time. He had intended to go to the ghost city today, but with Mosan's condition, he probably couldn't go either. He stood up and glanced at the door. Yaksen was still trembling from the cold. It seemed like this woman wouldn't shed a tear until she saw the coffin. Mojang couldn't care less. He changed his clothes and walked out of the room without turning back. Brother-in-law, it's late. Where are you going? When Yaksen heard the sound of him leaving, she hurriedly stood up and followed behind him. Mojang ignored her, got into his car, and stepped on the accelerator and sped off. Damn it! Yaksen stomped her feet angrily. She really didn't have a choice, so she took out her phone and called Tan Shilin. Hey, let's meet tomorrow. I failed. Yaksen spoke reluctantly. Tan Shilin had expected this outcome. Yaksen was one of his pawns, and he had long seen through her simple-mindedness. Who is it? Li Shishi asked in a daze. No one, she's just an idiot. Tan Shilin put down his phone and said, I heard a woman's voice. Are you keeping another woman behind my back? Li Shishi was dissatisfied. She wanted to completely possess the man by her side. She could only be his last woman and would never allow anyone to steal her man. Aren't you the woman I keep? Tan Shilin smiled faintly and said, Tan Shilin, you... Li Shishi was about to quarrel when Tan Shilin covered his mouth with hers. Don't worry, you're the most beautiful one in my heart. Look at what I bought you. Tan Shilin smiled and took out an exquisite box from his suit pocket. He slowly opened the box to Li Shishi. Shishi's eyes lit up. It was a limited edition sapphire ring this year, and there weren't many others in this world. She didn't expect Tan Shilin to be willingly to give it to her. Is this real? Li Shishi accepted the ring with joy and looked at it carefully. Of course, I'm willing to do anything for my baby. Tan Shilin planted a kiss on Li Shishi's cheek. Then are you willing to get a divorce? Li Shishi looked at the ring with joy, and a shocking idea popped into her head. If Tan Shilin got a divorce and married her, she could have as many rings as she wanted. She could also become the young madam of the Tan family openly, which would make her comparable to Ayn Rand. Tan Shilin hesitated. Her old master had allowed Hu to be the young madam because the Hu family was poor, and she herself was shrewd and capable. Old master had also said that Hu was born for the Tan family. Back then he was so unwilling, but it didn't go according to the old master's wishes. If he took the initiative to get a divorce and marry an actress today, he wouldn't be able to inherit the Tan family's assets, not to mention losing his identity as the young master of the Tan family. He couldn't give up his future for an actress. Although Li Shishi was stupid, she was very pretty and was much more interesting than Hu. He wasn't willing to give her up yet, so he could only coax her. Why not? But you should know that my words don't carry much weight at home. The old master is the one who calls the shots at home. If I get a divorce now, you won't be able to get a single piece of money, let alone become the young madam. We'll have to discuss this again in the future. Tan Shilin smiled. Li Shishi had the same thoughts. Although Tan Shilin was rich, the authority was in the old man's hands. If she wanted to marry into the family, she would have to curry favor with the old man. Words alone are useless. You have to hurry. I'm waiting. Li Shishi kept her eyes on the ring, which she cherished very much. Tan Shilin finally heaved a sigh of relief, but when it came down to divorce, he really didn't dare to. Hu had always been in control of the Tan family's business, and she knew all the secrets. Over the years, the Tan family had relied on her to earn a lot of money, which is why they were where they are. If they really got divorced, the Tan family wouldn't be able to last more than a few years before it was overtaken by others. Shishi, don't worry. I will buy you whatever you want in the future. As long as you behave, I will give you whatever you want. Tan Shilin wanted both women. The woman at home that could earn money for him and the woman outside that could provide entertainment. As long as he could keep these women in check, life would still be beautiful. I do have something I want to help you with. I have the resources you've recommended and they're developing well. However, I want Ayn Rand's resources too. He has been much popular than me recently. I know he accepted a special talent show and I wanted that spot. Li Shishi was a very vengeful person, and she would always remember that his sister had surpassed her. She was fortunate that Ayn Rand wasn't in the entertainment circle, or else how many people would be out of business? Sure, I know that the variety show. I happen to be very familiar with the investor there. I'll let him know in a few days and let you replace him. But you have to think about how to repay me. Tan Shilin's eyes flashed brightly and he stared at Li Shishi. No, we've done it a few times today. Don't you find it tiring? Li Shishi was a little scared and her body was sore. Tan Shilin wasn't young anymore, but he was as brave as a young man. She looked at his wolf-like gaze and it was horrifying. Of course I'm not tired, because I have this. Tan Shilin took out a yellow liquid, opened it and drank it.